Level 1. The Recruit. You are 18, fresh out of a town small enough that everybody knew when the pharmacy changed owners. You do not enlist because you are lost. You enlist because stillness feels like rust. It is late August at Great Lakes, and the wind off Lake Michigan tastes like metal and rain. Your mother cried in the parking lot after you signed. Your father did not cry, but his handshake lingered like a goodbye. Boot camp teaches you a simple law. Discomfort is ordinary, and excuses are useless. Reveille comes before your body understands mourning. You fold your rack until the corners look sharp enough to cut skin. You run in formation with 50 strangers who are slowly becoming one machine made of sore legs, cold lungs, and stubbornness. A recruit named Miller from Oklahoma throws up on the grinder, wipes his mouth, and keeps running. Nobody laughs. The place strips comedy from suffering. It leaves only fact. You learn watches, knots, firefighting, compartment drills, chain of command. You learn that panic spreads faster than flame, and that calm is a choice you make before you need it. One night, a chief petty officer stops beside you while you scrub a passageway that already looks clean. He says, "You want something harder than this." You answer, "Yes, chief." He nods once and moves on. A month later, you volunteer for Naval Special Warfare screening. Most people around you think that is either admirable or stupid. You pass the first gates barely, then start training like someone has pointed you toward deeper water. You are not a SEAL. You are not even close. But for the first time in your life, you can feel the direction of your own ambition, and that feeling is stronger than fear. Level 2. The Bud. S candidate. You are 19, and Coronado is all glare, salt, sand, and consequences. Basic underwater demolition. SEAL training does not destroy everyone the same way. It studies you first. It waits to see where you are vain, where you are proud, where your identity still depends on being seen as exceptional. Then it presses exactly there. The surf is winter cold. The instructors are not angry men. They are precise men. The first phase turns your body into an argument with itself. Your shoulders burn, carrying boats. Sand lives in your hair, ears, socks, and food. Your lips crack, your calves knot. Time loses its normal shape. There is only evolution after evolution, the bell in the distance, and the private negotiation every candidate conducts. A former college wrestler named Ortega quits on a Wednesday afternoon when the sky is perfectly blue. Nothing dramatic happens. He simply walks to the bell, rings it 3 times, and becomes someone leaving. That is what frightens you. Quitting here does not look theatrical. It looks available. Hell Week arrives like a bad rumor becoming weather. 5.5 days of cold, sleep deprivation, noise, motion, and constant correction. Men hallucinate. Men forget the middle of sentences. You discover that exhaustion is not just physical, it is moral. It tries to convince you that keeping your word is optional. On the 3rd night, you are carrying a boat over your head when your legs begin to tremble in a way you have never felt before. You think, "I can stop." Then the candidate beside you slips, the boat tilts, and instinct replaces self-pity. You shoulder more weight without deciding to. That becomes the pattern. You finish because each time the moment comes, you choose the team before the self. When Hell Week ends, you do not feel triumphant. You feel hollowed out, as if the ocean has reached inside you and removed every unnecessary story. Level 3. The Qualification Trainee. You are 20. Surviving Bud, S only earns you the right to continue. SEAL qualification training shapes raw material into something dependable. Weapons, communications, land navigation, small unit tactics, medicine, diving, airborne operations, cold weather survival. Every skill arrives with an implied sentence at the end, because someday someone will be relying on this in the dark. You stop thinking of knowledge as personal improvement. It becomes obligation. During combat medicine, an instructor places red dye on your gloves and tells you to work faster. You are treating a simulated arterial bleed while another trainee shouts wrong information in your ear. Stress is always layered. Nothing important will ever happen one problem at a time. In the range house, you learn that marksmanship is not about aggression. It is about disciplined perception. During dive phase, you spend long minutes underwater fixing equipment failures by touch. The ocean is an indifferent examiner. It does not care that your chest is tight or that your lungs are bargaining. It only cares whether your procedure is correct. Near the end of training, one instructor gathers the class after a miserable night exercise and says, "Calm is a skill. Most people wait for it to happen to them. Professionals manufacture it. Later you receive your trident. There is no thunderclap, no cinematic swell. Just a quiet ceremony, a handshake, the weight of metal in your palm, and the understanding that the symbol is not a reward. It is a bill that comes due every day after this. You look at yourself in the mirror that evening and notice something unsettling. You do not feel bigger. You feel more accountable. Somewhere along the way, ambition changed shape. It stopped being about proving that you could enter the room. Now it is about whether you can be trusted once you are inside. Level 4. The Platoon Operator. You are 23, assigned to a team where everyone seems carved from a harder material than the world you came from. You expected swagger. What you find instead is competence so mature it does not need to announce itself. The older operators are not interested in your potential. They care whether you are early, whether your kit is squared away, whether you listen the first time, whether you can keep your breathing level when confusion enters the room. Workups fill the calendar. Shooting packages, close quarters battle, mobility, surveillance, maritime drills, breaching, intelligence briefs. Then, deployment. Your first real operation is not glorious. It is patient. A coastal objective, a smuggler, with links to a network larger than the file, admits. Hours of insertion, waiting, observing, adjusting to a door that is not where the blueprint said it would be. When the call comes, the movement feels pre-written. Later, you realize speed is just what preparation looks like when pressure finally arrives. The target is secured. Nobody cheers. The helicopter ride home is almost silent, except for radios and breathing. In debrief, you speak only when asked. You do not embellish. In this community, drama is usually a sign that someone was unprepared. You deploy repeatedly. Sometimes the missions are kinetic. Sometimes they are reconnaissance so quiet it feels like you are trying not to disturb history. What the public imagines as constant action is actually constant readiness, punctuated by short, violent moments in which years of training either hold or fail. One winter, you lose a teammate named Jensen, not during an assault, but after one, when a vehicle on a wet road makes a small mistake with permanent consequences. Its randomness angers you more than enemy fire ever did. At the memorial, his locker sits open, uniform arranged, boots beneath it, and the room becomes unbearable because everything is neat. You learn a difficult truth. Elite units do not harden you by making you feel less. They demand that you feel everything and remain useful anyway. Level 5. The Lead Petty Officer. You are 27 now, and younger men watch your face when the plan changes. That is how leadership begins here, not with ceremony, but with people unconsciously checking whether your nervous system is worth borrowing. You are responsible for a handful of operators, which means you are responsible for more than their performance. You are responsible for standards, rhythm, trust, the pre-mission details that decide whether pressure sharpens the team or scatters it. You know who rushes reloads when tired. You know who jokes when he is anxious, and who stops joking when he becomes dangerous in the useful way. During a hostage rescue rehearsal, one of your newest men misses a corner because he is trying too hard to be fast. After the run, you do not humiliate him. You walk him back through the room at half speed and show him where speed actually comes from. Smooth is not slow, you tell him. Smooth is what lets you be accurate before your fear catches up. Weeks later, on deployment, a real compound replaces the plywood walls. The intelligence is partial. The timeline is shrinking. The hostages may move before dawn. You brief the team, adjust the routes twice, and feel the old pre-mission silence settle in. The breach goes on time. Inside, room 3 is wrong immediately. Furniture has shifted. A hallway is narrower than it looked in imagery. One hostile appears from a blind angle, and one of your operators hesitates for half a beat. You are already moving, already redirecting, already fixing the geometry before anyone can name the mistake. 90 seconds later, the hostages are alive and in your custody. Back at the safe site, people call the mission clean. You know better. It was recoverable. Leadership at this level is not writing perfect plans. It is protecting the team from imperfection when reality sends the invoice. Level 6. The Chief. You are 32, and the work becomes less visible and more consequential. As a chief, you hold discipline in one hand and memory in the other. Officers can direct the mission. You make sure the unit can survive the distance between intention and execution. You are responsible for gear, readiness, training cycles, and a harder resource: honesty. The young operators still think the hardest part of the job is danger. The older ones know it is maintenance. Maintaining sharpness, curiosity, humility, aggression without recklessness, confidence without laziness. Institutions decay quietly. So do men. Part of your role is catching decay early enough that it can still be reversed. An operator named Boone has a strong record, but lately his decisions have become conservative in the wrong places. He is preserving himself rather than pressing advantage. Outsiders do not know the difference between acceptable and excellent. You do. After a range day, you sit with him on an overturned crate beside the Conex boxes. The sun is dropping and the brass on the concrete shines like small coins. You tell him, experience is supposed to widen you, not shrink you. He stares at the ground for a long time. Then he nods. That conversation matters more than any speech you will ever give. At this level, culture is transmitted in individual corrections, in standards enforced when it would be easier to let them slide, in the willingness to tell the truth before comfort turns into habit. You attend more retirement ceremonies now, more funerals. You are beginning to understand that the unit is not merely a collection of missions. It is a living argument against drift, renewed by people who choose every day not to lower the bar just because they have already paid so much to reach it. Level 7. The Troop Commander. You are 37, an officer now measured less by your own performance under pressure than by the quality of the ecosystem you create around pressure. Command is not a wider version of action. It is deeper. You think in training priorities, resource allocation, intelligence gaps, partner force reliability, maintenance delays, family strain, medical readiness, political timing. The mission people see on one night in one country may have begun 6 months earlier in a budget meeting, so dull nobody would call it heroic. Choose the wrong capability to emphasize, and someone else pays later with confusion or blood. That is command. Deferred consequences. Your troop is tasked with a rolling series of operations across 2 theaters. The targets are connected, but not cleanly. Every week the picture changes. One informant disappears. One partner unit underperforms. Weather closes a route that planners liked too much. The older version understands that ambiguity is not a disruption of the job. It is the job. After one particularly tense operation, all your people return alive. But the window was narrower than predicted, and an air asset arrived later than promised. On paper, success. In private, you rewrite 3 procedures before sunrise. Nobody congratulates you for the crisis that did not happen because of decisions made afterward. That is what the rank requires. Late one evening, you walk the team spaces after everyone else has left. Gloves drying on racks, whiteboards full of notes, a forgotten cup of coffee gone cold. You realize leadership has become strangely lonely, not because you are isolated, but because you must metabolize uncertainty before anyone else sees it. Your calm is no longer personal discipline. It is infrastructure. Level 8. The Unit Commander. You are 43, and your name appears in fewer rooms even as your decisions reach more of them. Public attention means little here. Secrecy is not glamour. It is gravity. It keeps the work from becoming theater. You oversee selection, readiness, interagency coordination, long-range planning, and the preservation of a culture that can be ruined by small compromises repeated over time. Most outsiders imagine command at this level as issuing bold orders. In reality, much of it is discerning which missions should not happen, which opportunities are bait, which fragment of intelligence is being overvalued because it flatters somebody's preferred narrative. The hardest decisions are often refusals. A request comes across your desk involving a high-risk strike in a place the government will barely acknowledge. The tactical package is impressive. The operators can do it. That is not the only question. You sit with analysts, aviators, lawyers. You ask the same problem from 5 directions until the room grows quiet. Capability is never the sole criterion. Consequence matters. Precedent matters. What happens the morning after matters. Eventually, you approve a revised option that is slower, less cinematic, and far more responsible. It succeeds, which means almost nobody outside a handful of offices will ever know it existed. That anonymity no longer bothers you. In some ways, it feels cleaner. Praise has always been the least reliable fuel. One afternoon, a junior officer asks how you bear the weight of decisions that land on people younger than you. You tell him, you do not get used to it. If you get used to it, leave. He writes that down as though he has been handed a secret. It is only a standard. The dangerous leaders are the comfortable ones. Level 9, the flag officer. You are 49, responsible now for formations larger than the team, the troop, or the unit. Entire architectures of special operations move through your day. Task forces, aircraft, analysts, diplomats, cyber specialists, partner commands, contested policies, legal reviews, emergent crises. You spend as much time translating between worlds as deciding between options. Operators speak in windows, routes, rehearsals, contingencies. Civilian leadership speaks in authorities, risk tolerance, strategic effects. Both languages describe reality. Neither is sufficient alone. At this altitude, impatience becomes expensive. One careless sentence can damage an alliance. One oversold brief can distort national policy. One poorly framed success can create the illusion that a template exists for the next problem, when, in fact, the next problem is always stranger. A kidnapping in the Sahel threatens to ignite a regional crisis. Intelligence is incomplete. The hostages are moving, and 3 partner governments want 3 incompatible outcomes. You have 90 minutes to recommend a path. The room is full of capable people, all of them hoping your certainty will make the world simpler than it is. You do not offer certainty. You offer disciplined clarity. What is known, what is assumed, what can be influenced, what cannot. Which risks are tactical, political, and moral. The recommendation is accepted. The operation works. People come home. Somewhere, reporters describe events without understanding how many invisible hands prevented the worst version of the story. Success at this level is rarely emotional in the moment. It is archival, another crisis prevented. Another reminder that history is often shaped by rooms the public never sees, and by people mature enough to know that being important is not the same thing as being visible. Level 10, the veteran. You are 54, retired long enough to understand that the body leaves service before the nervous system does. You still wake before dawn without an alarm. You still scan exits in restaurants before you notice the menu. At first, the silence feels counterfeit. No briefings, no mission folders, no late-night calls that redraw tomorrow. You go to a grocery store on a Tuesday morning and feel, for an absurd moment, as if everyone else received instructions for civilian life that never reached you. Then time does what time sometimes does. It turns absence into perspective. You begin teaching leadership seminars, avoiding war stories because stories are cheap and lessons are expensive. Students ask about courage. Young veterans ask how to live without the rhythm that once organized every cell in the body. You tell them transition is not a downgrade, it is a different test. In uniform, purpose arrived already named. Outside, you must build it yourself without applause, urgency, or a chain of command. That can feel smaller at first. It is not smaller, it is simply quieter. The same discipline that once prepared your gear must now prepare your character for ordinary life. Marriage, friendship, patience, service without adrenaline. The battlefield taught intensity. Retirement teaches proportion. And if you learn it well, peace stops feeling like surrender. You tell them the same thing in different words. Identity cannot depend entirely on urgency. Service was never valuable because it was dramatic. It was valuable because it required repeated fidelity to a standard when nobody outside the room would ever know whether you held it. You think about the men beside whom you learned to suffer, the chiefs who corrected you without cushioning it, the officers who stayed calm when the map became fiction, the friends you buried too early, the younger operators who now carry forward habits you once received from someone else. Legacy, you realize, is not fame. It is transferred precision. It is a phrase remembered at the right moment. A decision made correctly in private that protects strangers you will never meet. Some mornings you sit on the porch with coffee while the sky lightens by degrees and feel something you once would have mistaken for emptiness. It is not emptiness. It is peace, the adult version of peace, the kind that knows exactly what it costs to arrive. You were never the center of the story. The work was. The standard was. The next man was. And because you gave your best years to that truth, the quiet no longer feels like the end of meaning. It feels like the first honest place from which to see it.